Hi, this is Gus from Foundation Football. Today I want to just discuss briefly about our training sessions, what we're doing in term two. So basically, just an overall view of our methodology and how we conduct our sessions. So just to get started, I guess the first thing we need to explain is the fact that we have a vision and a mission behind the structure of our training session, and it's sort of broken down into threefold. The first part is knowledge acquisition. Knowledge acquisition is not just um, the ability to learn how to play football. It's a lot more than that in terms of what the game represents and what it can facilitate for children in terms of developing character, more importantly, than anything else. So, knowledge acquisition represents both the physical aspect as well as the psychological aspect, relationships, and so forth. We have what we have the COWLS, which is six different areas of development where we focus on technical, tactical, psychological, morphological, physiological, and so forth. And through all these mediums, we plan and develop our sessions based on how do we maximize the outcomes of human development based on those factors. So the first one is knowledge, obviously. The more knowledgeable children become in both their physical knowledge and mental knowledge and so forth, the more skilled they're going to become. So the second aspect is the development of skill. So knowledge leads to skill, and the more skillful they become, the better footballer they become, the more confident they become, the more concentrated they become. And so skill basically leads to the acquisition of skill through knowledge, then leads to desire. And that desire is what pushes them to work on their own, to work hard at the craft. Um, um, it builds the internal motivation, I guess, needed in order to put yourself into what I could probably say is uncomfortable circumstances instead of living in comfortable circumstances, because it's much easier in this day and age um, to feel comfortable to sit on your couch and to have these all these distractions available to us. So that leads to how we actually do our sessions. So our sessions are broken up into anything from 4 to 5 parts. Generally, it's 4 parts, but with the younger kids, we add a fifth element. So the first part is the warm up, and the warm up is always what we call a rondo game. It's a small little game where you have players on the outside in a small grid, and one or two players on the inside trying to win the ball off the players on the outside. So if you lose the ball, whoever loses the ball goes in. And this develops touch, it develops passing, it develops awareness, it develops a whole range of different aspects to the player's improvement. It's rondos is something that I've been doing for years and years and years myself as a child growing up and also as a professional footballer. When we travelled to Barcelona a few years ago, we got a good idea as to how they use it, and it's an extensive part of their program. They use rondos from under sixes right through to the first team, and they all do it the same way. That's why they're so good at developing kids, is the consistency that they have in their program. So that's the first part. The second part is skill acquisition. So we do this more with the younger groups because they need a lot more balance and coordination. So we focus mostly on just balance and coordination. So every player has a ball each, and we do different types of moves that enhances their ability to become multi-directional. So they can go in any direction, anytime. They get comfortable using the sole of their feet to be able to turn and complete different signature moves and so forth. So we do this extensively with the younger ones. We have what we call the 8 moves, and then we use combinations, and we also use a variety of other drills and fun games for them to develop these necessary skills that you need as a footballer. We do the same thing with the older kids in term 2. We've been doing that every night that we train. It's especially in this country, it's one of the things that a lot of the kids lack, is just that extra ability to manipulate the ball. So we don't do technical skills in terms of passing practice and things like that. We basically just do one player, one ball. We do everything based on dribbling and keeping possession of the ball by being able to manipulate their body movements. We then move into passing and positioning games, which is part 3 or part 2, depending on the age group. So part 3 is all about learning to position themselves using what we call our geometric training system. We're always looking to put the players into games where there are specific shapes involved, obviously triangles and diamonds, because it creates multiple lines. There's a transition in there, which is really, really important because we teach them steps through transitions. So we use overload. So there's always extra players who we call jokers. So that means when the game is being played, there's always an overload situation where you'll have a 6v4 or a 7v4 and so forth, which allows the players a little bit more time to transition into position and so forth. So these games are usually done in small areas. It's about speed of thought. It's about getting them to be able to pass balls accurately whilst under pressure in small areas. We then move into part 4 or 5. Part 4 is game training. So game training is basically a game, and in these games, this is where I generally tend to stop-start coach. So we generally only coach from when the ball goes out. We don't coach during open play. From time to time, we might stop it if we see something, but generally we don't stop in open play. What we do is we try to teach them when and where. So we might section up the pitch into 3 or 4 parts. And obviously where you are determines your behaviour on the ball. So if you're closer to your goal, you're going to play with a little bit more caution. If you're closer to their goal, you're going to take a lot more risk, and so forth. So we try to get them to become aware of the field and where they are and how their behaviour on those particular areas determines the outcome in the game. And then the last part is always a free game. We always try to end a session with players having as much fun as possible. We even out the teams. Sometimes we play the game training situations with overload. Sometimes we don't. Just depends on the situation. But in part 4, it's always about enjoyment, freedom to express themselves, a lot of dribbling, a lot of 1-2s, something that they might not normally get in their own club teams, because generally in club land you generally tend to focus on tactics a lot of times. You're just trying to replicate what happens on the game on the weekend for the result, for the sake of the result. So with academy training, we focus more on the individual. So we don't post too many rules in those free games at the end. It's almost like a replication of street football, where I believe is probably the most important part of the session. Is just giving them the freedom to express themselves and to dribble and to take risks, to score goals and so forth. And we generally do this in small-sided games. So that's about it. That's term 2 for 2019. We're halfway through. And the kids are working hard, and yeah, that's about it. Thank you.